together. It was pretty cool. It was a good time.
Yeah.
Anywhere trout are at is the most beautiful place on the planet. You know, it's amazing.
Nice. So we are live now. We'll kind of get into it in a minute here or so, but thank you all for those who've shown up already. We're having another fun Santa Rita Hills Wine Alliance chat today. Going to talk about some Pinot Noir and then some stuff from outside of the district too. The appellation, we're going to have some Zinfandel actually from Happy Canyon and some Rhone blend from Los Olivos district. So we'll just wait a few seconds more. Let me find my list of upcoming events. And shift to this. I also, if anyone has questions, they'll pop up in these comments, and I'll, if they're a good question, I will ask you guys them. So all right, we might as well start now. Thank you all for tuning in. As some of you probably know, since you've watched this a few times, I'm Matt Kettmann. I'm a contributing editor for Wine Enthusiast magazine. I'm also the senior editor of the Santa Barbara Independent, where I've worked for more than 20 years and started pretty much 20 years ago, starting to cover the wine region of Santa Barbara County. We've been doing this series for the last few weeks in lieu of actually going out and tasting too many places. Some that's happening right now, so you're actually welcome to go do that as long as it's outside, it sounds like. But you know, this is a great way to learn some stuff and meet some new people, which is really what I'm doing today too, as compared to some of the last weeks where I knew the winemakers quite well. Justin Charbonneau from Temperance Cellars and Matt Kettmann from Buscador Wines. These guys are a little bit newer to me. We just haven't had cross paths as much. So I'm gonna learn a lot like the rest of you, which will be fun. Today we're going to be tasting a couple of Pinot Noirs from the Santa Rita Hills, one from each of them, and we'll get into that a little bit later. And then for a change of pace, we're actually trying some wines from outside of the appellation too. Both of these guys make wines from around Santa Barbara County, and so we'll be trying a Rhone blend from the Los Olivos district, the Grenache Syrah blend that Justin made for Temperance Cellars, and then a Zinfandel actually, which is kind of a rare grape for Santa Barbara County in general. That Matt made for his Buscador wine label out of Happy Canyon of Santa Barbara. Before we get too far, we should announce the upcoming one. So next week on July 21st at 5:15, we have Greg Brewer, who just dropped wines off to my house about 10 minutes ago, and Ken Brown, both pretty legendary figures in the region. Ken Brown being one of the original winemaker at Zaca Mesa, really one of the oldest, the longest termed winemakers in this entire region. And Greg, obviously very famous for Brewer Clifton and some other brands that he's created. On July 28th, we're going to have a showcase of Fe Ciega Vineyard, which is a pretty cool vineyard up in the Santa Rita Hills, right in the middle of the appellation. Rick Longoria is a partial owner of that vineyard, and then he makes the wine from there. And then Adam Tolmack of the Ojai Vineyard makes the wine from there. And Billy Watson from Fox and Canyon, or from Fox and Winery, makes the wine there as well. So we're going to taste a couple different vintages of each of their Fe Ciega wines, which should be pretty exciting. And that's on July 28th. On August 11th, we have Richard Sanford that's going, or no, I'm not supposed to say that. Hopefully he's not watching. It's a surprise. Don't tell him. Whoops. But and then on August 4th, we were going to have Paul Lotto, but I'm actually going to be out of town for once. So we're going to maybe move that to the August 18th. And then it sounds like we're going to actually keep this series going maybe through the end of the year with different winemakers every Tuesday. We might move it to every other Tuesday. But yeah, so much more to talk about in the weeks to come. So first of all, let's start off here. Let's start with Matt's wine. So Matt Kettmann from Buscador Wines, he is pouring, and hopefully some of you bought this at home, his Buscador 2018 Santa Rita Hills Pinot Noir. So Matt, tell us first of all about yourself. Tell us how you got into this business, where you're from, all that sort of thing.
The Cliff Note version, I guess, is I moved to San Ynez Valley 15 years ago. Actually, it was March 2005, just about the time that a little movie called Sideways got note at the Academy Awards. So that was March '05. What brought me here? Probably started in 1996. I had spent a summer living in Geneva and southern France, and that summer basically turned me from a beer drinker to a wine drinker.
Mhm.
Short story, really. That was it. It was they drink wine over there like we drink beer here. So it really took the I guess the stigma out of wine and the pretense for me. And it was one of those things that back then I was like, maybe someday I'll be a winemaker. Of course, that was quite some time ago. Life takes some crazy turns, and I found myself with the ability in 2004 and 5 to make a career change. I had the option to do that, so paid off some grad school loans, and oddly enough, I was deciding between going back to get a PhD, get a winemaking or culinary school, but that was about the time of Katrina, and I was going to go to Tulane, and it's just all the cards all played together. I had a buddy that lived in Santa Barbara, so I basically moved here and drove from Santa Barbara up and down from the coast all the way to San Francisco, and in 2005, San Ynez Valley was just a sleepy, cool vibe town, and I was like, you know what, this is where I want to do it, and it's close to the ocean, close to surf, and so that's kind of what began my journey. And as soon as everything took off with Sideways, there was tons and tons of jobs for apprentice winemakers, and that's how I started out, actually at Calira, where they filmed the movie, and so that it just kind of blew up after that. So
Right.
yeah, that's the Cliff Note version of it, basically.
Right. And it sounds like you've traveled a lot in your life, and that's partially what the name of your brand is, Buscador, right?
Yeah. Actually, that's 20 years ago. I was with a family in Guatemala who actually gave me that nickname, which buscar means to look for in Spanish. So Buscador is a searcher. That's kind of the whole theme, and a lot of what wine making and wine tasting is all about. It's a constant search. It's ever changing. Vintage to vintage, vineyard to vineyard, year to year. It's a constant search. So that's kind of how it all came together, and that's the hashtag, kind of loving your search in wine. So and in wine.
And when did you go from being an employee of a winery to starting your own brand and developing that?
I actually started in 2006.
Okay.
I did it I always started, my label started in 2006, but at that time, as many people kind of recall, it just took off everywhere. The Funk Zone didn't exist. There was still spaces in Los Olivos, but the first couple winemakers I met in the San Ynez Valley, actually, it was Mike at Cayena, Brandon over at Dragonette, Larry at Trocero Wines. They got their tasting rooms going in late 2009, 10, 11, 12, and you just saw the square footage prices just go crazy in Los Olivos, and I couldn't afford it. I didn't have the ability to do that, and I didn't want to ramp up that fast. So I think Justin will probably agree as well. Everywhere just blew up, including the Funk Zone, which now is, it was small time, and now it's very corporate and expensive. So that's why it took a bit of time to get the tasting room open, but I got it open over 3 years ago now in Buellton. Found a spot that's reasonable, and we do a lot of what the smaller winemakers do. We share equipment and facilities, and that's how we kind of got things going. So it's gone well since then.
Right. And do you still work somewhere else too, or is this your primary gig now?
Okay. Yeah, it was for 3 years now. It's been my primary gig, so I've been making a go of it, even though there's fires and floods and now pandemic.
Pandemics.
Yeah.
Tell us what you make. I mean, we'll focus on the Pinot in a second, but what else? You make a bunch of different wines, yeah?
Yeah, actually, I get bored pretty easy. So I'm going to be up to 22 different varietals after this harvest. I've seen since 2005 to now, the San Ynez Valley was, as you probably recall, it was Syrah, Pinot, Sauv Blanc. There was the Zaca Mesa stuff you talk about with Ken Brown, but Brander had his cab. There was very little diversity. Now, I mean, there's just unbelievable amount of diversity in the valley, And I find that as it spreads out from Rita Hills all the way to now well past the 154 in Happy Canyon, you can grow pretty much anything in the San Ynez Valley. And I keep to my similar style, so it's made in a similar style, but I definitely like to explore the varietals. And I love the Bordeaux's as much as I love the Pinots, for sure.
Right. Great. Let's talk about this one then. This is a Pinot. Have you been making Pinot the whole time, or is it new to you, or you have been? Okay, cool.
My first Pinot I started in 2012, and I had sourced from a small vineyard in Los Olivos. I did some. It was a 2A and a 777 clone, and it was just 2 acres, which I enjoyed that quite a bit. And then in 2015, I was introduced. Well, I was actually doing some work with Brett Escalera at Consilience, and he was then working with Bill Sanger, who bought that Hayes vineyard out in Rita Hills, and that's where I was able to get fruit in 2015 from the Sanger and Hayes vineyard. And I loved it, and this is the same. This is 3 years later, the version of it, and it's. In 2015, I made quite a bit. It was about 8 barrels. This vintage is only 4 barrels, but it's actually 3 different clones. So just because I know Brett fairly well, he works with me. He's been able to give me a couple bins of what I was kind of looking for, the similar blend, which is, so this blend is a 777, a Pomard, and a 115 together.
Right.
So I enjoyed it then, and it's unreleased, but I'm liking the way it's started moving along, and I'll release it in September, actually.
Right. And how would you describe your winemaking style? Like, what are you going for when it comes to Pinot or other things?
I make everything pretty much the same. I don't vary too much in my style. I always tell people it's a clean style, and they're like, well, what does that mean? I have a pretty hardcore chemistry background, so I do all the chemistry myself. I'm very focused on pH just because I have sensitivities to sulfur. So I make sure that it's usually very low sulfured wine, but that also means my pH is managed, and I filter things. So I don't do anything unfiltered anymore. I used to, but that's a dangerous thing, and I'm just not willing to play too much with doing unfiltered wines. And I found that the filtration that I do, which is a cross flow filtration, it really almost polishes the wine in a way. And for me, that just works out really well. And I do it everything. I do it from my Pinot all the way through to my Cab. And it doesn't remove the body at all, or any of the flavor really. So I call it a clean style, and also very approachable, but I also like to shoot for a 5 to 7 year window of where the peak is at. So I'm not making a 10-year wine, but I'm not making something that, grapefruit, grape juice right out of the bottle either.
Right. And how much does this sell for?
I haven't decided on a price point for this, but I sell pretty much close to what the tonnage price is. So if the tonnage price is $4,500, I'm going to come in at $45. That's kind of I think the honest way to start price things. For the most part, and then as it sells out, or as we lose volume, the price goes up or down depending, and how people rate it, like it, along those lines. But I usually start out with my 10% of what the tonnage price is.
Right. And you were saying before the call when we were talking that the Sanger and Hayes vineyard is on Sweeney Canyon Road.
It is, yeah.
And I feel like I've heard the Hayes family name around there. I feel like the Holus Bolus, the Joy Fantastic vineyard, is a Hayes property, and maybe even the Domaine de la Côte stuff was Hayes property.
Yeah, I mean,
in that neighborhood.
I don't have the map right in front of me, but right next to Fest Parker Vineyard is right along that way, and you kind of keep the road. Yeah, it's pretty hot. I mean, it gets warm. I mean, I picked the Pinot at, usually over 25 bricks. I'm believe in a little higher bricks for everything for the most part. I got a little extra bit of heat to it, to tell you the truth. It's what I prefer. So I don't mind, adding a little bit of water to cut back if I have to. I'd rather do that than start out with something that I might consider too thin for my own personal palate.
And how's the tasting room going up until the pandemic, and how's it going into the pandemic?
Yeah, it's been a challenge. I mean, we were a restaurant for a while, so
Yeah, right.
it was pretty crazy. I'm super happy at least there's some bit of sanity left in the governor at the moment by just everything outside is okay. So because of that, I think all the wineries will survive because we can do outdoor tasting. It's extremely safe way to do it, and so we've been doing that for the past month now. Everything's been outside, and I think as long as they kind of stick down that track, and people really do want to, they're just tired of being locked up. So if you can get out somewhere and enjoy a nice glass of wine in the afternoon outside where it's safe and the wind blows like you can't imagine over in Lompoc and Buellton, you're pretty safe to be hanging out and drinking some wine and enjoying it.
Great. Well, it's a tasty wine. Let's move on to Justin's wine and Justin's story. So Justin Charbonneau of Temperance Cellars is pouring us, or we're all pouring for ourselves, his 2016 Pinot Noir from Rancho Vina, Clone 777, obviously Santa Rita Hills. Justin, tell us your story. You're one of the I've always been surprised how few born and raised winemakers there are in Santa Barbara County. I know about 6 or 7 of them, which is kind of a stunningly low amount considering there's probably 200 to 300 winemakers floating around.
Yeah.
So tell us about your background and how you got into making wine.
Well, I was raised in Lompoc, born in Santa Barbara County, and as I grew up, we just kept hearing more and more about wine. And just like Matt said, around 2004, when that sideways craze hit, I just saw all my friends getting jobs at wineries, restaurants, hotels. I just saw how this whole wine industry was just facilitating all these jobs, and I realized this industry was here to stay. And I thought, like, yeah, let's do this. I graduated from college in 2008, and I went to college at UCSB. And when I came back, spending weekends with my friends, they'd get off work, they'd bring these bottles home, and we'd all just sit around and try different wines, and just basically kind of my cutting my teeth education of wine in the Santa Barbara County. And that's basically what got me started.
Great. And so when was your first vintage was what then?
My first vintage was 2012.
Okay. And did you work somewhere leading up to starting your own, or?
Yes, I started working for Dave Dascombe of Dascombe Cellars in 2010.
Okay, great. And so, and they're in Lompoc as well, the production facility?
At the time, Dave was the head winemaker for Roblar, so that's where I served my first harvest. And then after that, we moved to a spot in Buellton. And then here we are now. You can see behind me the warehouse here in Lompoc, right on the eastern edge of town. So we have an amazing view of the western end of the Santa Rita Hills. But we've been here since 2013.
Great. And so you're still the assistant winemaker there?
Yes, I'm still the assistant winemaker for Dascombe Cellars.
Okay. And so you started your own brand, you said, in 12. So that was your first vintage. And did you jump in right with Syrah or Pinot, or what was your initial plan?
Yeah, I was told early on that Syrah was a very forgiving grape, and since I was just getting a start, I was like, hey, why not? I did 2 vintages of Syrah before in 2014. I really spread my wings. I did a Pinot, a Sangio, a Cab Franc, a Rosé, a Viognier, and it just all started taking off from there.
And what do you make now? A wide variety.
Yeah, it changes every year, but I do predominantly make the Pinot, the Syrah, the Rosé. The Grenache is starting to become a staple of my lineup. Chardonnay's becoming more consistent, but with whites, I like to change it up every year. I've done like I said, the Viognier. I've done a Sauv Blanc. I've done an Albarino. And like Matt said, we can grow pretty much anything here in San Ynez Valley and Santa Barbara County. So there's just like I said, with the exception of those big 3, I'm going to keep in the lineup. I want to dabble in all kinds of other stuff. I've got a Merlot coming out at the end of this year. So, just It's fun here.
Keep it interesting. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And do you have a tasting room, or how do you get these wines to people?
I have a wine club, and I'm available in a few stores and wine bars and restaurants and whatnot. But no, I do not have a tasting room. I was gonna start the process, but then this whole pandemic thing hit, and it was kind of a blessing in disguise, because if I had started it before the pandemic, then it probably wouldn't have been worked out so well. But yeah, no, I'm just waiting and seeing like everyone else, and hopefully after this thing clears up, I'll get a spot in Lompoc. The downtown area would be ideal. But yeah, Temperance is gonna hopefully get a tasting room in Lompoc at some point.
And does your family still live in Lompoc? I mean, you still have extended family around? And
yeah, my parents still live here. My sister lives here, and then I have some very few extended family around here. But yeah, it's mainly my immediate family that's from Lompoc. And
I don't take it your parents are involved in the wine business. They might be now helping you, but
actually, they kind of got me into the wine industry. They were always, the whole sideways craze hit, and they would go out wine tasting all the time. And I was just like, "What are you guys doing? What's this wine thing about?" And I went with them one time, and I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, sign me up."
Cool.
And I would actually say that my dad serves as assistant winemaker for Temperance Cellars.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then tell us, before we start talking about your Pinot, tell us about the name Temperance Cellars. I don't know if a lot of people know that Lompoc was founded for non-alcoholic reasons.
Absolutely, yeah. It's funny how history turns out. In 1874, Lompoc was founded as a temperance colony, a place where alcohol is banned. It was just, back when people had crazy ideas about social experiments and different ways of utopian living, and non-alcoholic was the way they wanted to start Lompoc. It only lasted for 14 years. Yeah. There were various drugstores that sold medicinal liquor out of the back door. And it was a social experiment gone wrong. But yeah, that's Lompoc's history.
And it was a temperance colony, but it was also called New Vineland, wasn't it? I mean, that was the original name, I think, which is an odd
that's
name for a non-wine drinking place. But
right, yeah. Sashi Mormon used to have that label, New Vinland, and I still have one of those bottles, good Syrah. But yeah, New Vinland was the name for a while, I think. There were also a bunch of other little settlements around the area. My brother-in-law, he's a Hauk, and he tells me stories about how his family owned large tracts of land outside of Lompoc, and there was one little settlement that they actually called it Hauksville. It was kind of where the base is now.
Interesting. Cool. Well, tell us about this Pinot. It's 2016, so it's got a little bit of age on it, which is, I think, treating it quite well. So this is from Rancho Vina. So tell us a little bit about Rancho Vina and why you picked 777 as the clone.
Rancho Vina is a site that's just south of the heart of the Santa Rita Hills. If there were to be a textbook definition of Santa Rita Hills Pinot, I think Rancho Vina could serve as it. I chose clone 777 because I'm still, going through all the different clones and seeing what I like. I haven't started blending any clones yet. I'm just, trying to survey each one first. This is, like you said, 2016. The age has really served it well. The primary flavors are really just standing out. And, I'm a new parent, and I know you're not supposed to pick favorites. I only have the one kid right now, but with wine, I think it's kind of the same, but this is my favorite wine so far.
Of all the ones you've made?
Yeah, I love this Pinot.
Yeah, no, it's tasty. And when did you release it originally?
We bottled it in summer of 18. So it spent about 21 months in barrel. And then I released it later that fall. So it's been around for about, 2 years, or a year and a half. I've only got about 20 cases left though. So it's one of those things. It's going.
Translation, you guys should order more if you like it. Watching. Yeah, it's really tasty.
Thank you.
And then do you make a Rancho Vina every year?
No, not every year. I also work with Rio Vista Vineyard. I get fruit from them. I just really like that site. It's the easternmost end of the Santa Rita Hills. So I call it my California Pinot because it gets more heat. So it's more like other styles of, California Pinot, like Russian River or a little bit of Carneros. But so I like that side as well. But yeah.
Yeah, we oddly share some winemaking history together, which you don't know about because I'm just realizing it. But I make a tiny bit of wine every year, non-commercial, just for educational purposes and kind of like passing out to winemakers when I meet them, which people are like, oh, that's cool. You make some wine. And so in 2012 was my first year of doing that. And we made a Syrah from Ampelos Vineyard, which was actually my favorite wine yet. And we've made many since. And then also we bottled a barrel. We bought a barrel of Rio Vista Pinot in 2013 from Norm Yost at Flying Goat, and then bottled that. And it was a big, richer style of Pinot, but it was a crowd pleaser. People dug it.
Oh yeah.
I think I have like 2 bottles left of that. That one we called Chateau Debauch, which was a fun label. Great. So and what is your current release on? What is your current Pinot lineup right now?
I'm about to bottle a 2018 another Rancho La Vina. This one is clone 115. First time I've worked with this clone. This one's a big boy. Most of my Pinots I characterize as like, feminine or, like that. But this is my first Pinot that I'm going to call a boy. It's just big. It's got lots of color, lots of structure on it. And I'm really, really happy with this one.
Right. How many different Santa Rita Hills vineyards have you worked with over the course of your career so far?
Just the 2 so far, the Rio Vista and Rancho La Vina.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, we're talking to you. Let's move to the next wine here. And we're moving out of the Santa Rita Hills for the first time ever on this virtual tasting series. But we got the approval from the powers that be. So we can do that. Yeah, that's the moderation. Los Olivos district. It's just a little bit to the east there, a little past Ballard Canyon, before Happy Canyon. This is 67% Grenache and 33% Syrah, I believe, from 2 different vineyards. So, Justin, tell us about this wine and kind of where it fits in your overall lineup of wines.
Well, this is my very first blend I did back in 2017. I just wanted to make like a nice, easy drinking table wine. And this is, Rhone inspired, obviously. Very, very balanced, approachable, nothing too complex about it. And it's just really some good dinner, table wine for sipping, anything you want.
Right. And what was the price on the Pinot, on the 16?
Oh, the 16, that was $44 a bottle.
Okay, cool. And then what's the price on this one while we're on prices?
The moderation is going for 36.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then how do you find your sources? Is it related a little bit to your work at Dascombe, or are you going out and searching for places, or how are you doing that?
I definitely have met a lot of people through Dave. This Syrah vineyard is the vineyard I've been working with since 2012. The Meadowlark Vineyard. It's owned by a radiologist from Texas. It's like right on the banks of the Santa Ynez River, right on the water table. So the vineyard stays green and lush all year round, nice, bright, vibrant fruit. And then it happens that the owner of the vineyard is also a custom crush client for East Valley Vineyards, which is Dave's umbrella company that Dascombe is under. And then the same with the Grenache. The owner of that vineyard is also another one of our custom crush clients. So that's how we get access to those vineyards.
And that vineyard is which one again?
The Rancho del Prado.
Rancho del Prado. Great.
Yeah.
Great. And then where does this fit in your lineup? I mean, this is this is kind of your table wine. Your just fun to drink, easy going dinner wine, basically.
Yeah. Like I said, Grenache and Syrah are starting to become staples of my lineup. So I decided to just, use them the way they are traditionally used, blend them together, and just, expand my portfolio.
Right. Great. And then do you have a moderation every vintage, or is it per vintage you make a decision?
Yeah, it hasn't been I didn't make one the last year, but I have another one from 18 coming out, and I'm probably going to do another one this year in 2020.
Okay, great. Gonna throw any more vet in there, or just sticking with the Grenache Syrah mix?
Yeah, we're just keeping it Grenache Syrah for now. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, Justin. These are great wines, and exciting to try something from outside of Santa Rita Hills on this Santa Rita Hills call. Which
thank you. Yeah, even
great.
Don't tell Barbara, but even when I do go to Wine and Fire, I always sneak in a little outside of the AVA just for funsies.
Well, I think people. I mean, I love focusing on Santa Rita Hills. I mean, there's actually a good variety it's grown there. If you start to take in Rhones and Riesling and stuff like that, which we've actually tasted some on this series. But I think everybody loves to try, different wines from around the valley. I mean, it's just a great. It almost bolsters like how awesome the Santa Rita Hills are when you can show that you can grow, completely different wines of different varieties, just a few miles away too. It just kind of showcases the entire specialness of Santa Barbara County, which is extremely unique for that. So, well, great. Well, thank you, Justin. These have been tasty wines.
Thank you.
Matt, do you have any comments on the wine? Did you get some of these wines, or?
Yeah, I have them both. Yeah, I love them both.
Okay,
I've had both before. It's oddly enough, Justin and I often are standing near each other at tasting events, and that's how we met. I love to pour at the Lompoc rotary function. That's one I really like. I think originally we poured at a Giste, maybe in Solvang or something like that a couple years ago. But we were both kind of cutting our teeth trying to basically break into this a little bit. A lot of guys have been doing this for a while, like micro doing it, but it's not so easy now that the money has kind of flowed into the valley. So we're both kind of we feel we're on the same path. We're definitely kind of like, okay, so it's we kind of hit it off from the start, and he represents the spirit that I love to. We just love making wine, and there's no pretense behind it. It's for the same thing when he was talking about 2004 through 2008. 9, 10, where everyone just sat around and you just grabbed a bottle of amazing Syrah in someone's backyard with a fire pit, and you're like, this is amazing stuff out of San Luis Valley. So yeah.
Right. I should say too, Justin sent me some of his older ones too. He sent me a 12 Syrah, which I guess was your first go around there, which was holding up quite well. And then at 14 Pinot that you sent, which was that vineyard? What vineyard was that one?
That was Rancho Lavinia, and that was
Rancho Lavinia.
Yeah, and that was clone 667.
Okay, well, that was great too. Even I gave that to some of the bottle to a friend, and I gave him a bunch of wines, and that's the one he remarked about too. So clearly, the wine pulled up. So
thank you.
I have a question for Justin, even though I'll see you, but actually thinking of getting that 115 from Rio Vista this year. Would you take it over the 777 or the 667? You think?
I don't know. It came pretty big from Rancho Lavinia, so I
love that though. I love that.
Imagine how big it would be from Rio Vista, man.
I love that. I'm taking them. Yeah, I was talking to John Belfi. He's got some extra fruit this year, and I want to jump into that vineyard this year.
Yeah, it's great, man. I really like it. It's like I said, the California aspect of it, but you still get the Santa Rita Hills like underlying. It's Santa Rita Hills.
I'm gonna come taste it. I think I'm jumping into that stuff this year.
Heck yeah.
All right, Matt, let's move to Zinfandel. I mean, I taste about 300 and something wines a month from across the Central Coast, and Zinfandel is a big player in Paso Robles and some other spots, but not something that Santa Barbara County is known for. I actually grow it. I have a plant of Zinfandel in my backyard, a Santa Cruz Island clone of Zinfandel. So I grow a little Zinfandel, I guess, but it doesn't make much more than vinegar. So tell me how you found out about Zinfandel and how you think it's doing out there and where it is and the vineyard and all that.
Yeah, this is super fun, super fascinating. I've a lot of people come in to the tasting room and they're like, do you got a Zin? I mean, they're on their way to Paso, they're on their way to some place, and I'm always like, no. For years, no Zin in Santa Barbara County, and Not that I knew of at the time. I've done a little bit of research, found a few since then, but
there's like tiny bits here and there. Yeah.
Yeah, and Bridalwood is one that's always, they've had one planted there for a long time, I guess, but it's been off and on made as they've kind of switched over the years. I know Rusac, I think, has something on.
They have actually the Santa Cruz Island clone on their property, which makes a pretty fantastic wine. Actually, better than I think the one they grow on the island.
So my intention was a pure experiment, and what I was going to do, thinking it was going to turn into, this is not going to be much of a wine. I was going to do a bourbon barrel Zin. Popular, throw it in the, doesn't have much on it, throw it in a bourbon barrel, and then it gives it the weight and everything, and just kind of fun little wine. So that was my original intention. Even if I just took one bourbon barrel and then blended it with like 3 other barrels to make this wine. I've always, my wife actually worked for Coastal Vineyard Care for a while back in 2008 to 2010, around that time. So I know a lot of people at Coastal Vineyard Care, and I know they do a good job at managing some of the vineyards. And this is one of the vineyards they manage. It's the San Ynez Valley Vineyard, and it is. I'm pretty sure it's the farthest east vineyard in the entire San Ynez Valley. I've taken pictures of it, and when you look back at the one at the mountains, you're probably like 10 miles away from the 154. It's way back out there. So I'm like, this is gonna be a good vineyard to try. It's high heat, obviously, and you're gonna get plenty of the same thing that happens every night. It's gonna be 50 degrees.
Yeah. So they planted a lot of varieties out there, from what I understand.
Yeah, they planted Cab Franc. I mean, they have whites out there.
Sauvignon.
Yeah, I get Claret Blanche. I made this year, crazy white wine from there, just for the heck of it, just to try it. So it was fun, and oddly enough, that year in 2018 was the first year produced. Carhartt also did some Zin, and they picked about 2 weeks before I did, at about 24.5 bricks, and I'm like, push it. Let's just see what this can do. So I pushed it to almost 26 bricks, but the pH came in at like 3.6. If you get something that close to 26 bricks with a pH still at 3.6, that's a Zin. You got to be pretty darn happy about that. That's not going to happen in Paso. That's not going to happen in central hot part of the valley. That is going to happen though in the Russian River. And so I think, and I gave it I gave 3 barrels, and I did 1 American oak new, so it's about 35%, new American oak. So you're going to get that vanilla, traditional kind of vanilla taste to it. But it came in like, to me, a very subtle San Ynez Valley style wine, like a Russian River flavor to it. It's balanced. It's easy to drink. It's not over the top. But it definitely has body to it as well. So I left it the way it is, and I'm happy the way it came out. It's just a fun, easy drinking wine. It's a subtle Zin that I think it'll age pretty well, but it's right out of the gate. You can drink it.
Yeah, no, it's quite delicious. It has all those kind of Zin hallmarks like strawberry and kind of that baking spice stuff going on, and then some of that vanilla that you mentioned from the American oak, but pretty refreshing, like all of the San Ynez Valley wines are. I think it'll do well for you. This is your first vintage of it?
Yeah, it's great. It was just kind of fun. I made it in the same style, and it started out, oddly enough, really traditionally a jammy kind of Zin in the barrel, and then it turned super spicy for some reason along the way, and then when I put all 3 barrels together and came up with the 75 cases, it kind of has a little bit of all those subtle characteristics, nothing super dragging you one way or the other, but it definitely is a San Ynez Valley wine, which I love. I think the wine from our region is amazing, and it's balanced. All the wines are balanced. That's what we have. We have the heat, and we got the cool nights, and the wind takes care of so many things for us. So it was fun. So I'm glad it came out, and I made it again last year as well.
And is it a head trained vineyard of Zinfandel, or is it VSP?
Yeah, just regular, nothing, not dry farmed. It's I could probably pull a couple pictures on my phone, and the canes that stalked me are just like micro thin, It's,
right.
But yeah,
was this the first vintage of it for the vineyard too? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and you can get it at Carhartt. I think they're selling theirs as well. But theirs is definitely lighter in style. They picked it like 2 weeks earlier than I did. A little different wine, but it's fun. It's same as.
That's be fun to track for the next 10 years. Hopefully you keep making vintage after vintage, and then you can go back and see what young wines taste like versus what slightly older wines or vines taste like. And
yeah, that's a fun vineyard. It's a fun vineyard, and they have a lot of good fun stuff available. I'm actually going to this year. I'm exploring some crazy varietals. A little Grin from out there. I'm doing a Graciano from out that near that way. So just playing with it, having fun making wine.
Right. Justin, what do you think about the Zinfandel? Have you ever made Zin?
I have never made Zin, but I do like this. And like Matt said, it's kind of reminiscent of like a Russian River style Zin, very elegant, not at all like those central California Valley Zins, like Amador County or anything like that. Not that there's anything wrong with those, but this is just nice Santa Barbara County, smooth drinking, just elegant. It reminds me of a Zin that I had from Daniel Gears. He used to make a Zin, and his 2006 one, that was one of the wines, I was going through my sideways craze and going to all these places, and that Zin was something that really, got me onto the wine and all that, and this Zin is just reminiscent of that.
Great. Okay, guys. Well, I think we've covered everything we need to cover in this tasting. We've tasted some great Pinot Noirs from the Santa Rita Hills, and then as a special treat, some wines from beyond the Santa Rita Hills, including Justin Charbonneau from Temperance's Grenache Syrah blend called Moderation from the Los Olivos district, and then something brand new, the Zinfandel from Buscador out in Happy Canyon, which will be fun to see how that evolves over the years. So you guys got any parting shots or anything to say? Come out to your tasting rooms, come buy some wine.
Drink
I think with Justin and I were like, we're just excited to see people come out, and everyone, they are really. I mean, Flying Flags is packed full of people, and they're loving to get out and try to do something other than worry about everything that's kind of happening in the world. A glass of wine goes a long way to kind of ease the anxiety that the world kind of feels at the moment. That's for sure. So
it does, yeah,
absolutely.
All right, guys,
drink Santa Barbara County wine.
Yeah, it's the best. Santa Barbara County. You're right on, man. It's the best wine around for sure.
And certainly Santa Rita Hills too, since we're
Santa Rita Hills, exactly.
All right, guys. Cheers. Thank you for joining us, and thank you all for watching. Check us out next week when we have Greg Brewer and Ken Brown on this Santa Rita Hills Wine Alliance virtual tasting. So take care. Yeah, it's hard to do with the backwards, the non-mirrored thing there. All right. All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Matt. Thank you very much. Justin, good to see
you. Thanks, Matt. Thanks,
fun.
Matt.
See you in person hopefully one of these days.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
Bye.